Hello, I'm Harvey, host of Franchising Brand Stories. And this is...
Thanks, Harvey. Yeah, Paul Lewis from Pitman Training, Managing Director.
Excellent. And welcome to Franchising Brand Stories. And I'm going to do it. This is the show where we get under the hat of some of the best franchising brands in the UK and in the world. And this show is brought to you by FranRec, specialist staff and executive recruiters to the UK franchise industry. So this is a live show. Well, it's live if it's January the 30th at about 5:15 for about 50 minutes. And if you're here with us live, we love you to be part of this. So please put in a comment, say hello, ask a question and get involved where you can. So this is a show for you. It's a show if you are a potential franchisee, if you are looking to invest in a business. And we get to find out what's beyond those brochures and what's behind these brands by speaking to the fantastic people that are involved right at the heart of these businesses. So the brand story we're going to hear today is Pitman Training. And we've got the wonderful Paul Lewis with us. Paul, welcome to Franchising Brand Stories.
Yeah, thank you again, Harvey. Really, really pleased to be here. And thanks for inviting me on.
You're absolutely welcome. Well, look, let's get into this. We always start by asking a pretty obvious first question to find out what it's all about. So tell us what Pitman Training is. What do you do?
Yeah, good place to start. So it's important for me to say, because I'm so proud of the business that we have, that we've been involved in training and education for nearly 200 years. So I haven't checked whether we're the oldest still existing training company, but I reckon we probably are. We're still delivering wonderful training, now in 2025, and we aim it at private individuals and people in businesses. So helping them to upskill to either progress their career, reinvent themselves, maybe a complete career change or a promotion, maybe. And we help company leaders and company staff to be more productive and upskill. So take a course that makes them better, faster, more proficient, or again, allowing them to climb the ladder and gain promotions. So it's, B2B and B2C training.
Great. That's fantastic, because I think often in your career, you're sort of on your own to kind of climb this ladder or, improve yourself, or you rely on perhaps, some courses that you might choose or some help by some employers. So that's a really fantastic thing to do for individuals and people. Yeah. Let's find out a little bit now about where you're at today as a business. We are going to delve into the distant past in a minute. But before we do that, let's just find out in terms of sort of number of franchisees and whereabouts in the UK you can be found.
So easy to answer, Harvey. So 60 locations, predominantly UK and Ireland, and we have a few sprinkled around the rest of the world. And we have 30 franchise partners. So I'll let you do the maths. We have about half our network have one centre, one location, and the other half have a couple or three or four. So I'll talk more about our multi-unit strategy, because that exists, but that's us. So we're in most major towns and cities, and we'd love to be in every major town and city, but I know you're going to ask me some of those questions later.
I might do. Yeah, I might well do. Fantastic. Great. Well, look, that's really good. It's great for if you're a prospective franchisee or an investor looking at this, you're getting now an idea of what Pitman Training does, whereabouts you are in the UK, and that's certainly going to give people a good start to what it is that you do. So if you have just joined us today, this is Franchising Brand Stories, brought to you by FranRec, the specialist staff and executive recruiter to the UK franchise industry. And today we are hearing the story of Pitman Training, and we're going to get into that story right now. So what I really like to ask is, we're going to go back in time. So it's not just where did it begin for you at Pitman Training, but where did it begin for Pitman Training? I know you weren't there 200 years ago. If you're 200 years old, you're doing very well. I want to know what face creams you use.
So, yeah, if I can, Harvey, like I said, I'm really proud because Pitman is a heritage brand. We've been voted a British super brand, repeatedly over the years. So I definitely feel that myself and the team are carrying this torch for what is a phenomenal brand and a piece of British history that will always be that. So some people, and it is a generational thing. Most people, my age or above, will know of Pitman. Usually Pitman shorthand, and that was invented by Sir Isaac Pitman, 1837, and he was a teacher, an English teacher, and he created a writing method that meant instead of the normal handwriting, maybe 30-40 words a minute, you could achieve near on 200 words a minute, which of course was groundbreaking and really phenomenal, because if you were in any kind of profession, and of course pre-technology, pre-computers that required you to write fast, think of courtrooms, think of medical transcriptions and these sorts of environments, journalists, you could be the best journalist and pushing for promotion if you were on 200 words a minute with Sir Isaac's shorthand method. So that was where it all started, and it's snowballed since then into many other forms of training, always with administration and office skills at the heart. Because that was our origin, but we've morphed into lots of other areas, which I'm sure we'll get into in terms of IT, digital marketing, cybersecurity, data analyst, all of the in-demand job roles now. So we've morphed, but we still have this administration and office skills at our cornerstone. And then bringing it forward to more present day, we launched as a franchise in 1992. And maybe I'll circle back and explain how and why that happened. But it means we've been franchising for over 30 years. And then I got involved in 2020 in deepest, darkest lockdown. It was either lockdown 1 or 2, I think, when I got involved. So nearly 5 years, and absolutely love it. I've never been in education before now, but I feel totally immersed, and I feel like I am an educationalist. And of all the jobs and roles I've done, many of which have been in franchising, this is the one that gives me the buzz. I feel like we make a difference to people, and we transform their lives in a real way.
Absolutely. It's definitely one of these franchise organizations, and we speak to many that change lives, and we're definitely going to get to that in a minute. But you have the opportunity to change lives on various different levels. You've got the individuals that you help. You've got your franchisees, you've got staff within your franchisees organizations and the company itself. So it's sort of, it's got a great opportunity to change lives, as you say. Before we get into a few more, let's have a look. We've got somebody here with us already. It's great to see the ever wise Simon Wise with us, and he's put hello from St Albans in Hertfordshire. And Simon has also come back with love that, a piece of British history. I am sure your franchisees are very proud to be part of that heritage. I'm sure they are. It's such an iconic brand, and having been about for that amount of time, it's something.
Well, just to put some context on that as well, Harvey and Simon, I find, and it's a arbitrary, figure, but about half the conversations I have with anybody, whether it's networking or dinner parties or distant friends, and they say, "What are you doing now?" or "What's Pitman Training?" They'll the penny will usually drop about half of the time. "Oh, is that the same Pitman shorthand, Pitman colleges?" So that's quite compelling. That maybe half the the audience already knows Pitman. In their kind of in their memories even, but in terms of brand and strength of brand, that's quite a big deal, because as a bunch of franchisors, we're all trying to put our brands out there and get people to recognise what we do. And Pitman has a massive advantage because of that nearly 200-year-old heritage. So yeah, our franchisees cite that when they're thinking of joining as a real plus.
Yeah, absolutely. Simon's just put instant brand recognition. That's awesome. It is. It really helps. And if you're a potential franchisee looking at this, one of the first considerations has got to be, the strength of the brand, because that's part of what helps you run your business well and helps you be successful. If you've got a brand that people know well, that's got that sort of strong heritage behind it, it helps people have more confidence, doesn't it? So love it. Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into the type of people that typically choose your business, because again, if you're a potential franchisee, a potential investor looking at this, and you're thinking, what's my background? Am I going to fit in? Is this going to be the business for me? Is it typically educators or teachers or that sort of academia that choose this, or is it business people? Who normally chooses the franchise?
We definitely have educators, if you will, in our network, but it's more business people, Harvey. I would say that's because we're looking for that profile. We're looking for people who want to start a real business and something they can scale and grow. And as I say, multi-unit, multi-site is something that we're talking about even in our marketing. We ideally want people who are up for multi-sector ownership, because we believe it will be better for them, and we believe it is better for us and our network as well. So but no strict prerequisites. I think in certain sectors there will be. You must have a certain background. Maybe it would be food, or maybe it would be care or sports. But in our case, you absolutely don't need education as a background. It's more about the persona of the franchise partner, somebody who has connection to their community or prepared to create one, because we are a community business, and as the franchise partner, you would be the face. So there might be sponsorships and charity links. You want to be talking to public sector. You'll want to be, flying the flag and putting Pitman on the map in your town. And we say to our franchise partners, it's over to you to own your town. And that's, I'm sure that's not limited to Pitman. Every other franchise brand will need to have great local marketing and brand awareness, but we're big on that. So if you're scared of marketing, scared of sales, then you're probably not right for us. But if you're open to those things, don't need to be wildly experienced in sales and marketing, but ready to embrace that and ready to be a community champion, because Pitman is a community.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic to hear. And again, a lot of people now that are listening, because I guess when you're in education, you're not necessarily in that sort of sales and marketing area. But if you're in business, and if you have been, perhaps you've been on that sort of ladder yourself and grown up that ladder and, found that challenging, and you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, well, I can use some of my experiences coupled with a proven system to help others climb up the ladder quicker or better, or in a more balanced or enjoyable way. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. Most of our prospective franchisees will say, I love the look of this business because it will allow me to give back. So whilst building a business and turning a profit is obviously important, this concept of giving back, I think maybe that's even more prevalent post pandemic. I think we all had moments where we reflected on our situations and our lives, and when all this is done and dusted, I'd like to give back. And I think we saw how how COVID sort of harmed a large section of society as well. Mass furlough, mass layoffs, and things like this. There were obvious skill shortages by the end. So that's been a real narrative of people approaching us saying, I want to join because.
Yeah, I get to hear that a lot more, especially in the sort of the sector, that giving back, especially in that sort of sector of people that have maybe come to the end of their career, maybe they're retired, but they don't actually necessarily want to stop doing things, and they do want to give back. Maybe they've retired a little early, maybe they've been fortunate enough to do that, but actually they're fed up with golf and gardening, and they still want to deliver something, but in a different way. I guess that's an interesting question. Does it suit people of that kind of age, or that sort of part of life? If you're retired, is it a good thing to do for that sort of community?
Yeah, look, there's no kind of age requirements here, Harvey, and there's no maximum or minimum age. But I would say it definitely needs energy. So if you're a super energetic 65-year-old, then come on down. But we're not a sort of what's the word, part-time, or a kind of side hustle, or we're not a a sleepy business. We're very very active. It is premises based, so you will have premises, you will have staff, you will have 6 days a week activity. So there's a lot going on. So we're not, some franchises actually lend themselves to maybe semi-retirement or a slightly easier pay. We're not that, but you can. And I know you've popped a question up there, which kind of I can answer now, which is yes, we are a management franchise, and the franchise partner, we encourage them to employ managers so that they can expand into multi-locations, but the franchise partner can be as hands-on as they wish to be, and many of them are very hands-on. They want to be meeting the students and presenting the certificates, and doing the local marketing, local networking. So yeah, very much a management franchise, but not a absentee. I think that's a term that we throw around, isn't it? You can certainly be an absentee once you've built a portfolio of Pitman centres. But to begin with, I think you'll just want to be, very hands-on and very involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And because that desire, that passion to want to give back and want to help others, surely I'm sure that must come through in wanting to get involved in that, certainly at the beginning. But like you say, then if you're helping people to build these multi-site franchises, they have to be a little bit hands off them, but it can change. Even if you've got 5 or even 10 locations, you can still get involved in certain key physical things within the business as well, and keep your hand in as well. Love that. Yeah, great. Let's have a little look. So we've spoken a little bit about what type of people choose the business. What I wanted to get into is, you mentioned franchising came in 1992, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I wanted to, with a business that has been going so many years, we're talking 200 years, which I think is a record for this particular show, that's for sure. But it had obviously 170 years of not using that, and probably franchising was typically used, I don't know, maybe 30 years before you started. But what made you choose franchising as a business, and why do you think that's become so successful as a model for growth?
So yeah, I can. Pitman has changed through the ages. So if you go back all the way to the 1800s, it was Sir Isaac and his sons that owned and operated the business. So it was a owner operator, and was predominantly large schools and colleges, London centric. So that's where it all began, and there were thousands of students, and then it increased up to millions of students. And from having locations, he then packaged the curriculum and distributed the curriculum. So for probably the next 100 or so years, it was amazing curriculum that was distributed around the world, and certainly around the UK. So if you fast forward to the sort of the 80s and 90s, we had a bunch of training providers. So it could be small and medium-sized businesses that were, if you like, supplying Pitman as part of their curriculum. And like a lot of franchises that exist today, it was more of a supplier agreement whereby they were almost exclusive. So, right, 90% of what I'm doing is Pitman. So that's what my customers want. That's what I'm providing. So it was almost by accident that we were a quasi-franchise back in 1990. We had all these very loyal suppliers that were promoting Pitman. We were forever distributing content to them. And this was pre-computers. So it was, if you were doing a 300-hour diploma, it was a pile of papers and files and folded workbooks, and your tutor, if you like, had a workbook, you had a workbook, and there was a bit of a exchange going on. So we approached all of our customers and said, we're now converting to a franchise. Are you in? And do you want to be one of those early adopters? So we still have a couple of those early adopters, which I think demonstrates the longevity. But it was at that moment that we knew franchising was right, because we had so many loyal training providers that were working with us.
Fantastic, and I kind of like how it organically developed into a franchise, because it was right to be, and it almost became one without you going, right, franchising is going to be our model of growth here. It's just that it happened that sort of loyalty grew and that connection grew. And you looked at franchising, you looked at what you had, and the two were almost there and the same anyway. So I love that.
Well, and we knew, I say we, my predecessors, but we knew that it could give us scale. We knew, and still today, we're on a mission to be in all major towns and cities. We've come a long way in that 30-year period, but we've still got a little way to go. So it's franchising, as it does for so many organizations, it's really aided our growth and our multi-locations.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see, just put the question up there about how the models evolve, because that's exactly what you were just talking about there. And it has evolved. It started off by applying franchising to some people that were early adopters to what wasn't a franchising model that became it. And then clearly, by the number of franchisees currently at the moment, number of locations, like you say, it's people who've got one or two, and you're encouraging, I'm sure, them and others that join to have more locations. So it's evolving, isn't it? And it's a natural management franchise anyway. It feels it anyway. So
it is.
Love it. Let's have a look. I would like to now, again, if you're a prospective franchisee watching this and you've now understood what the business is, you've understood the type of people that are in the organization, I always think the next step for people understanding the business is, what does that prospect journey look like? So when somebody makes a call, what happens between making that call or approaching you at an exhibition? We must talk about that, by the way, because you're going to be at the exhibition tomorrow. Yes.
That is true. Yes, we are here in London Olympia.
Excellent. Name your stand number. Let's do it right now.
How bad of me! I don't know the stand number, Harvey.
It's fine. People will be able to find you.
Biggest, tallest, Pitman Training. You can't.
That's it. Look for Pitman Training. You'll be all right. Excellent. No, that's great. But yes, it would be really good to sort of understand from that first point of contact to the point where you start that working day. What does that look like, that journey, and where does the sort of commitment points fall in that journey as well?
Yeah, good question. Thank you, Harvey. So I would say we are pretty typical. As I say, I've been involved with other franchise businesses. So I think there is a best practice that we, that exists, that we try to observe. So we call it a roadmap. So we have a 6-step roadmap that takes people through that early discovery phase. So we have discovery calls and discovery meetings, like a lot of brands will do, and that's two-way, always two-way. We want to discover more about the candidate, and of course they want to discover more about us and the business. So that's always going on. So we've got this franchise show tomorrow and Saturday, which we're really looking forward to, and we'll speak to a whole host of people, and the idea is we will first book them in for a discovery call. So that's our if you like, first step. And then, much like a lot of franchise businesses, there's that validation / due diligence period. Again, two ways. So we're trying to validate what the candidate is telling us as well, in terms of what sort of timescales are we looking at, what sort of budget's involved in this, and what motivation as well. We really do test people's motivations, because we do need people who care. We find that people who care about the business they're in will perform better than those who perhaps are just doing it because it's a business, or they just want to make money, or what have you. So if you get the combination, then that's wonderful. But they're validating on us as well. So we have our disclosure document. So we've put that together recently. So we have all of the all of the details and all of the possible numbers and examples of how the business works, and the whole hallmarks of the business, I guess. So discovery, and then validation, and then we have talking to franchise partners as well, which is an extension of that. So we welcome, and because we're a physical business, we invite any candidates to come into one of our locations. Maybe they meet us at one of our locations. And what I should mention as well, Harvey, is we, as in Pitman Training Group, we have 3 of our own locations as well.
Okay.
It's very deliberate. I feel really strongly about this. I think that every franchise brand should have an owned centre or entity. I do. My opinions may be changed over the years, but I feel quite strongly about that, because you can speak with real authority. And when you set best practice and you set the standards, you can do it from your own, your own business. And we invite franchise prospects to meet us in one of our locations as well, and have a look around and see how it's done. And I think that gives them real confidence that, wow, okay, it's not just theoretical. The franchisor told me how everything works. They're now showing me how they do it in practice. I can talk to franchisees as well to further validate all those, claims and statements, etc. And then, of course, within all of that, we've got the franchise agreement being exchanged and being checked out. We're part of the BFA, full members, so we make sure that the franchisee goes and gets that checked by a franchise lawyer, and
they're fully aware of everything that they're getting into, what they're signing up for. Is so important. Anybody who's looking into franchising is completely aware of what it is that they're getting into, that transparency. Yeah, love that.
Yeah, 100%. And that's really it. I maybe that's not quite 6 steps, but the process would take, it's up to the candidate. We don't want to say it takes 10 weeks, 12 weeks. We don't want it to be too quick, and of course, we equally don't want it to be, to be too long. So we are, we're quite, we're always honest, open and honest, and it's over to the candidate to tell us where they're at.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, within that sort of that process there, and I love what you do there, the calls, the discovery day, the validation both ways, the fact that you've got a franchise disclosure document. Not many people do here in the UK. It's much more commonplace in the US, but and then talking to existing franchisees, even more validation. But what I was going to ask is, in terms of the commitment journey. So you're a franchisee going through this journey. At what point does things like a deposit or signing that agreement and committing, do they all sit at the end of that, or do they sit throughout that journey?
Much closer to the end. We're not, because we're mature. We're not. We don't really factor franchise fees in our budgeting. It's not something that supports our P&L, if you like. Where some franchise, especially the younger ones, you have to sell a certain number of franchise partners to fuel your growth. We want to sell franchises because we want sort of younger blood in our network. We want that energy and ideas coming into our network. But it's far less about the fees. So we're yes, we take deposits to hold a territory. We do have, we often have multiple people looking at the same territory. So there is a kind of an aspect of putting a deposit, refundable. So we always say, it's a fully refundable deposit, but it takes it off the market, because there is an element of scarcity. So we may have, if we took Derby, for example, it's one where we're talking to 3 or 4 different parties at the moment. So in that situation, we'll be upfront and say, look, if you want it, or you want it to be off the market, then we would require a small deposit.
Yeah, I get that. And again, this is transparency. It's fully refundable. You've already said that. But, people are going to be able to go through, unless there's that refundable deposit. Am I right that people can go through that full process of seeing all of those documents, speaking to all those people, and then people are making the decision, signing the agreement at that very latter stage of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're not rushing it. We issue after a non-disclosure, so we ask for confidentiality. We're giving people a lot of information. You're surprised about the disclosure document, but we give that and the franchise agreement. So we literally leave no stone unturned, so that the individual can make a really informed decision, can ask questions. Often they challenge us on certain things and they need to clarify, and that's fine. You have to allow people and afford people that that opportunity. But yeah, of course, you then have to pay the full balance of the franchise fee to be able to enroll on a induction training.
Absolutely. And then obviously sign your agreement. But you've gone through this process. You're a prospective franchisee listening to this and listening to what that process is. And that right away through this process, you're both ways. You said there, it's a two-way thing. And both ways, you're validating them. Are they the right partner for us? They're validating you as well. And is this the right opportunity for me? And it really appears that with that process, you're really giving people that opportunity to properly assess whether this is right for them, and only commit when it is right for them, and when they're ready to.
100%. Yeah, 100%. What often happens, Harvey, in reality is, the franchise agreement says that you can claim your territory, you join, and you open your training center within a 3-month period. So it gives people that runway to find the ideal location, have it totally refurbed, recruit the staff, etc. But often what happens is when they're falling in love with Pitman, they're falling in love with the premises as well. Because that's how these things, so they say, oh, you'll never get, I found the ideal, it's right in the heart of town, just like you advised me, it's this big, it looks, I know it's going to be amazing. So that tends to be a catalyst as well. And we encourage that, because if you don't need 3 months to get organized, and you can actually do it in tandem with having the franchise agreement checked and signed and paying the balance, etc., then why not? So yeah, we find that finding the premises and signing the agreement tend to be kind of one of the.
Absolutely, I can see that, because when people can see a building, they can see something tangible, and therefore they can picture their business, they can picture it. And when somebody can picture something, it makes them all the more passionate and excited and full of energy for it. So love it. We've got a couple of good points and questions coming up from Simon. If you have just joined us today, this is Franchising Brand Stories, brought to you by FranRec, the specialist staff and executive recruiters to the UK franchise industry. Please scan the QR code if you have just joined us. That'll take you to the beginning of today's episode. Or if you catch a snippet of this in the future, again, scan that and you can watch the whole thing at your leisure. Let's have a quick look at a couple of things from Simon. And I think we'll get on to what a day in the life might look like, because I think that's a really important thing to get to. Simon's put, I am sure the variety of training you offer has enabled the business to stand the test of time and always stay relevant. What are the most popular courses your centers offer? Yeah, that's a great question. Is there something that's more popular than another course?
Absolutely there is, and great question from Simon there. I think it's important to talk about student profile as well, because you immediately make an assumption on what the student profile would be. So our average student age currently is around about 37 years old, which surprises most people. It tends to be a little higher than they envisage. Yes, we get school leavers. So we cater for 18 plus. We don't cater for school age people. So 18 plus. So we get plenty of school leavers, but we get, I guess the predominance is people who have gone straight into a job, usually low skilled, something they're not enjoying. So it could be, factory, warehouse, retail, hospitality, something like that. Maybe antisocial working hours and things like this. And then you get to your 30s and you think, I wish I'd have tried harder at school, or I wish I'd have continued that degree, or gone to uni in the first place, or whatever. So, and we do. The best way I can term it, Harvey, is we have a lot of underprivileged people as well. So people who've had some hardship in their life, maybe they had no chance for a higher education. So they left school with no grades or with just their GCSEs or whatever. And we have a lot of people, a lot of immigrants as well, who, make a new life in the UK, but maybe because of prejudice or because of, misfortune, they're finding they're not getting the jobs they really want. And that's, so this kind of immigrant population and underprivileged population often make up a lot of our student base. Yeah. So that's, when I said earlier, transforming people's lives, we're not, those people with a degree don't often come to Pitman because they've targeted a particular career path and they've gone and they've worked towards that. Whereas this is somebody who says, I really don't want to be working shifts in a warehouse for too much longer, and they'll come and take a particular diploma with us, and often they know which route they want to take, but sometimes they don't. They'll say, I just want to work in an office. I just want to work 9 to 5. I don't want to work weekends anymore. What's the best route for me? And we have everything from office admin, as I mentioned earlier, through to digital marketing, accountancy, bookkeeping. And then we have this plethora of IT and, data as well. So we have about 6 or 7 career paths within IT. So from cybersecurity to cloud engineering, IT support technician, web development, software development. So the in-demand jobs, we try and look at what jobs are in demand, what jobs are paying well, and then we'll design our curriculum to take people.
That's fantastic. It's good to be able to have something that's a bit malleable, adaptable to current trends, and you can take people with different skills and experiences and take them down slightly different paths, supported by a structure that works across all of those different things.
And if I can just go back to Simon's question, the most popular training course is actually Microsoft Excel, because whether you are becoming a data analyst or a medical administrative worker or an office manager, everybody, still 90% of organizations use spreadsheets and use, and if we can be faster, more proficient. So within all of our diplomas, you'll usually find the Microsoft suite.
Absolutely. Control X, Control V. those things. That sort of
You've
stuff.
got it.
Brilliant. Well, look, it's a really fascinating conversation, a really interesting business, really adding a lot of value. There's a couple of things that I really want to get into before we get to the last. We've got about 5 minutes left. So the first thing I want to do is to try and understand what a day in the life of a franchisee might look like, because again, it's a great way of building that picture. We spoke about building that picture, so let's get into that. And then I really want to talk about some of the life-changing stories and some of the characters you've met. So let's try and squeeze that all into 5 minutes. Well, let's start with a day in the life. Let's see what that looks like.
Yeah, and I'll try and be concise here, Harvey, because it is diverse. But if we took a typical day, you've got an element of managing your team. That's that's important. In every location, you will have a course advisor, and that is the person dealing with inquiries and enrollments. So it's their job, as the title suggests, to advise people on the right course or diploma for them. And you'll have a learning coach, which might look like a tutor in other parts of the education world, but your learning coach is somebody to take the student and help them, guide them, and get them completed successfully, really, and answer any questions along the way. But we deliver self-paced learning. That's really important, because often people perceive that this is classroom or cohort or tutor-led. And it's none of those things. It's the curriculum is so strong that it's all on a learning management system for you. And when you enter that learning management system, it's videos, audios, and you're completely guided, and you can navigate yourself. And then if you need the help of your learning coach, then you can call them over. So we have centres for that very reason, because we want people taking their studies in our centres, but it is blended, so they can do it from home as well. And often our students will tell us that, I prefer coming into the centre when I can, because I haven't got barking dogs, screaming kids, doorbells, all the distractions of life. So that's why our locations are so important. So you've got your location, you've got your staff. There'll be an element of own your town community marketing. So every day we encourage our franchise partners to be banging the drum and doing their local marketing, and that includes social media, maybe Google AdWords, and all these good things. So we talk about online, offline marketing, because both go hand in hand. You'll be meeting and greeting students at certain points. We encourage, a bit like when you go to a lovely restaurant and the owner plays a part, maybe just a cameo appearance, but that makes a huge difference, because it's part of the prestige. When the owner shakes your hand and says, "Welcome to Pitman, Harvey's going to be your course advisor today." You feel lucky. That I think that's the owner. I think that's the manager. So there's an element of being the face of your business. And of course, if you want to sit in on consultations and sit in on, some of the student inductions and interactions. So we encourage our franchise partners to do all of the above. That's really in a nutshell, Harvey. We're not a complicated business.
It did.
So, yeah,
it was brilliant. And it's really good that again, you're building that picture, and that you can be involved, and you can be involved in a way that's really important to the business. But it's not that sort of day to day. You've got people that are going to support the students across that, but you're adding to it. Love it. Great. Well, look, we're going to get to my favorite part of this, so we can never miss this bit out, and I think it's going to be particularly relevant. You've spoken a little bit already about some of the sectors that you try and help underprivileged people, people who have come to this country and are trying to find their feet. You must have met both franchisees and people that you help. You must have heard and met a lot of them over the years. But are there any characters or stories that stick out in your mind?
Yeah, loads, I guess. So thinking of franchise partners, I love it when they achieve their aspirations. So I mentioned I mentioned that we had some founder franchisees still in our business, and one of them after, so this was actually Pitman Training Dublin. A chap called Mike, he and his father had the business pre-Pitman, and they were, as I described, enjoying Pitman curriculum and buying Pitman training courses to sell to their students. And then when the opportunity came to join the franchise in the early 90s, they grabbed it. And then Mike's father retired out, and Mike became the manager. And then fast forward 32 years as a franchise partner, he sold his business last year. And Dublin actually became the largest and busiest training centre in our entire network, which may or may not surprise, but it's a phenomenal city. But he really kind of did himself proud, did us proud, did Pitman proud. Created a wonderful training centre in the heart of Dublin, massive reputation. And what was even more special was that a fellow franchise partner bought the business. So it was up for sale, if you like. Mike had reached a certain age where he decided that it was time to sell his business, and I think that's important as well. It shouldn't be shied away from in franchising. So even for anybody watching this thinking about joining Pitman or starting any franchise, you've got to think with the end in mind. Your exit strategy, even if it is 30 years away or 10 years or whatever. And we've had, in fact, I would say 2024 was a fantastic year for resales for us. And that's really, really important, because that allows somebody else to, continue that legacy. And I know if I was, exiting a business, I would much rather it goes to somebody who I respect. It doesn't have to be somebody in the network. It could be somebody from outside, but knowing that it's in good hands and they can maybe take it to the next level. So yeah, that sort of sticks in my mind, because it's such a, it shows
definitely
longevity.
100%. And I've always said that franchising does change people's lives, and it clearly does at Pitman. You spoke earlier about people falling in love with Pitman. Well, that clearly does happen, so love it. We are now coming to the third, I need to drop my bit of paper there. We're coming to the third and final part of today's show. If you have just joined us, this is Franchising Brand Stories. Today we are hearing the brand story of Pitman Training, and this is brought to you by FranRec, specialist staff and executive recruiters to the UK franchise industry. So this is the part of the show where you give us the Franchising Brand Stories exclusive. Okay, so we're now going to talk about the future and what's coming up in the future. Now, I'm going to say as well that there is a QR code on the screen right now, top left, that does take you to the Pitman Training franchise website. So please scan that if you would wish to find out more. And do go and see Paul and all the other lovely franchise folk at the exhibition tomorrow. But while people are scanning that, let us know what's going to come up in the future for Pitman. What exciting stuff's happening?
Yeah, so the exclusive, as you say, Harvey. I did think about this on my way here today, and there's nothing top secret. There's nothing, because we're a mature business, and we have all of our best practice in place, and it's fueling our growth. I will say we had our best year ever last year, which makes me really proud, and we can only be successful if our franchise partners are successful. But I think priority number one is more locations, and we're not looking for we're not looking for kind of world domination. We know very strategically in the UK we have about 20 or 25 locations that we've earmarked that we'd like to open a training centre. Some of that is happening organically, so our existing partners are taking on new territories, which I think is great validation, and people are obviously approaching us to launch their own training centres. So that's priority number one. And priority number two is new curriculum. We never ever stand still. So just recently we launched an executive assistant diploma with fashion, for the fashion industry. So we're starting to we're starting to really push our curriculum to involve, introduce new career paths for people. So that will continue to happen. And we've just appointed a new head of education who's got loads of ideas and will help us to keep on developing. And then probably the biggest one, I think, in terms of prospective franchise partners, we have 3 or 4 different channels at the moment. Private individuals we've talked a bit about, businesses, and that is SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises. Exams is an inherent part of what we do, and actually a very lucrative part of what we do. And then fourthly is funded, so government funded, and we do a little bit on government funded. In the future, we want to do a whole lot more. We believe that's a way of doubling or trebling the revenue in our business. We've invested heavily. So our main investment last year and this year is how do we unlock the government-funded market? It's starting to bear fruit now in a big way. And as I say, I not just plucking numbers out the air when I say I believe we can double and triple the size of our business. We have to maintain our other channels. So throw baby out with bathwater.
Exactly. Well, it's good for franchisees to have all these exciting routes to get additional revenues, to offer additional good services. So I love that. I'm going to get on to what we're doing next week on the show in a moment. Before I do that, have you got any final thoughts to share with people who may watch this in the future and anybody who's been watching today?
Thanks, Harvey. Yeah, I think, look, if you're listening and watching this and you're intrigued, come and talk to us. But if you want to make a difference in your community, if you want to give back, but if you want to make some serious money and profit in the process and build a saleable asset as well, because lots of franchises out there of all different shapes and sizes. But I mentioned we had our best year last year, but it was also our best year for resales as well. And whilst it's always sad to say goodbye to these long-standing franchise partners, it means somebody new is joining our business and continuing that legacy.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So I would say come and talk to us if you're interested.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Paul. Well, look, I would like to thank everybody who's been here today live, everybody who's going to watch this in the future as well. I'd like to say a big thank you to Pitman Training and to Paul for taking his time out this evening to talk to us. So next week on our sister show on the Franchise Show, we are talking franchise coaching. And that's going to be on the 4th, next Tuesday, 4th of February, 5:15 GMT, 12:15 EST. And next week on Franchising Brand Stories, we will be finding out what's under the hat of Jackson Fire and Security. So please join the wonderful Steve and Natalie Thursday, the 6th of February, 5:15 GMT, 12:15 EST. And until next time, my friends, take very good care. Cheerio.